Hey guys, welcome back.
Hey guys, brand new podcast.
Hey, wait a minute. It's my podcast.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Enjoy. You know that on Amazon you can make a Christmas list for yourself, and then you can send that list to someone who wants to know, or your kids, not just obviously. I had my kids start a Christmas list on Amazon, so when Nana says, hey, what do they want? I just send them the link to their Amazon list, and she can go buy, and she's done. So it's easy for everybody.
That's good because then you know that thing is bought. Like my kids write it out and then they give copies and then I don't know who got what.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what was bought, and then
That's good.
They picked it out, so you know they want it. And it's kind of a win-win-win-win-win. I love that.
I'll have to have the kids do it.
There's also another app called Elfster. You know this Elfster?
I love Elfster.
Elfster's awesome. It's like a Secret Santa app. And you can put your list on that app. So you can draw names for Secret Santa, and then your Secret Santa can see the things you want. Or you can just not Secret Santa and send anybody your Elfster list. That's another good, elfster.com. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm so excited about this podcast. I have been dying to talk about this. I heard a podcast in October on Hidden Brain, which is a podcast. He did an episode called Voting with Your Middle Finger. So it was really about trying to figure out why Trump won, right? Why Trump won. But that's not what fascinated me about this episode. That was fascinating. And there's a lot of other things in this episode besides what I want to talk about. But the thing that really fascinated me was his first guest was a woman named Joan Williams. And she is a law professor and she studies gender and class. And she's written a book called White Working Class. So she broke down kind of our country a little bit. So she broke it down like this. People who are considered poor, their median household income is $19,000 a year. And that's about 30% of our population. And then the top earners is about 20% of our population. So the middle class or the working class, who has a median income of about $70,000 a year, is 53% of our population. Right?
Okay.
To give you kind of a perspective. So half the people are either really rich or really poor, and then the other half are middle working class people. So I grew up very blue collar, as did the two of you. You grew up with blue collar parents. There were obviously educated people. My aunt went to college. Both my aunts went to college, but they were still, a nurse and a teacher. They're still very much in this kind of general median income area. But the things that she was talking about that really fascinated me was the differences between white collar and blue collar people. And all three of us find ourselves today living in a white collar world, right? I married a white collar guy. Lynn, you married a white collar guy. I don't know, was Bill a white collar guy from growing up?
I don't know about from growing up, but definitely that's what he
is now, right?
Yes, he created for himself.
So what I found fascinating in this podcast was she said a lot of stuff, but the thing that really got me was the difference in identity of those classes. So in her studies, she discovered that blue collar people identify themselves or have they develop their identity based on their community. And their community is very small and usually very self-contained. And it's usually somewhere they've lived their whole lives, like Bowden, Georgia, like where I grew up. And white collar people identify themselves by what they do or their achievements. So the disparity that's happened between the classes in her assessment is as simple as this interaction she described. Her husband was blue collar, grew up in the Rust Belt. She is a fourth generation lawyer, went to Yale, Harvard, and MIT. So you could say she's white collar. So she married a blue collar guy, right? So they go back to his high school reunion. And it's clear to her that everybody there is working class except for her and her husband. And her husband goes up to this guy that he was friends with in high school and says, chit chat, and then goes, so what do you do for a living? And he got beet red, furious, and said, I sell toilets. And she said from that interaction, she realized that her husband had offended him because he does not identify himself with what he does. He identifies himself with his value within the context of his community and his ability to go to a job that he hates, that he's loyal to, that he's ethically doing well in, and take care of his family by doing that. And that's who he identifies with. And it is offensive to him to have a white collar guy come in and go, so what do you do? Because it doesn't define who he is. I thought that was fascinating. What do you think about that?
I don't really know. I can kind of relate though. I mean, growing up in Fremont, which is weird because it is just like 25 minutes away from San Francisco. So it's like 20 minutes from Silicon Valley. So it's not like this, isolated area, but it's very much community oriented, and I don't fit in. Like I don't like going home. I don't like going back there because it's always about, my dad will call me. He'll be like, oh, so-and-so died. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do about it? Like, not like that's a bad thing. Like, I'm sorry, whoever it was passed away, but it's not who I am.
Right.
And so, not that I identify like who I am as a lawyer or anything like that. I can understand like the community. And so when you go and you ask like, what is it that you do? I can understand because that's not important to them. It's their people that are important to them.
It's the people that's important to them.
Yeah. And I think my dad gets upset when I'm not as upset or bothered or whatever about things that he is when it happens to people that I knew growing up, but I don't really have a relationship with them any longer.
Right.
And so that's a philosophical difference that he and I have that makes it hard to relate.
Right.
At this current time in my life.
Right.
So I can kind of understand that. I don't know.
You see what she's talking about.
I do see what she's talking about.
Yeah, I absolutely see what she's talking about. 100%. What about you? What do you think about that?
I totally understand it. And I mean, where I grew up, it was like you were doing drugs or selling drugs or making them, whatever. But the thing is, though, I was thinking about it, it's like, what do you make for small talk? That's what everybody asks.
The weather.
Well, I mean, I get like, hey, how's the weather outside? Like, if you, like, how do you get to know somebody?
Oh,
it's
I know
such
the
an
answer to
offensive
this.
conversation.
No, I know how to do that. I'm good at that. I was thinking about this the other day. I have this really, not to be braggy or anything, but I can talk to freaking anybody. I can talk to anybody in any class. Where I get uncomfortable is when I talk to someone who is a fourth generation lawyer and goes to Yale, Harvard, and MIT. And I go, check, please. I don't know what to say to you.
Yes.
But my plumber, all day long. The homeless guy, if he's not scary crazy, all day long I talk to that guy. Here's what you ask him. How you doing? How's your family? Mm-hmm. Did you go anywhere fun this summer? What are you watching on TV now? All that stuff is people, even poor people in the 19,000 and under can answer all of those questions.
Right. It's
all a commonality.
Superficial today.
It's what we consider superficial?
Yeah, just like a superficial conversation. You're just kind of making chit chat. Like I don't have any deep conversations when I go home.
Oh, no. The conversations are totally different.
It's about family. It's about weather. It's about
the price of gas.
Yeah.
Every time my dad comes here, oh my God, I can't believe the price of gas. I can't believe you paying that for gas. I mean, oh, okay. So it's that. But yeah. I think the problem is a lack of the elite, the lack of compassion, and allowance that their world is as important and has as much dignity as any other world. What does he need me?
I'm sorry.
What?
He wants to know if Isla wanted earpods.
No, she kept saying that she will lose earpods. No.
Did you hear that?
Oh my God! In the middle of my podcast.
Does he know what's happening?
Yes,
right now?
I called him before and I said, "Is there anything that you need? Because I'm about to step into a podcast." And he goes,
well,
"Nope, I'm good."
Austin.
I guess so. What a sucker. Anyway, something she was talking about here, which goes in line with kind of what I'm saying, I thought was really interesting. She said what she found in her studies was that the elite, or the upper 20%, stereotypes the white working class as stupid, racist losers, which gives them an excuse to hit the mute button. Misuse of anti-racism as snobbery is what she found that to be, and it's not helping the situation in our country. And I actually agree with her.
Wow.
I agree with her almost 100%.
Yeah.
Because when we were talking with your dad, Sam, about my grandfather, who anybody in this elite community I live in would see as a racist, because he used the word N-word as opposed to the word black, you don't see the whole person. You see that one thing, and now you've made a judgment on the whole person, not the fact that my grandfather would buy 20 hams and barbecue them to raise money to build a building at a church he wasn't even a member of. The fact that the factory in the middle of town started burning down, and he drove 5 miles into town to pull hose for the fire department. I'm sorry, that's a really good human being. That he gave away more money than he made 90% of the time, and that he was really good to everybody that worked for him, black or white. But if you heard him say the N-word as a description, not as a derogatory term, you would label him as a racist, and I think that's wrong. Now, obviously, that's not someone of our generation. Our generation using that word is a different deal.
Yes.
But he was born in like 1920. So I think that happens a lot. I think that's why Trump got elected. Is I think that because here's another statistic she said, which I found fascinating about them. In Trump's election, she believes it was a revolt. She said that Clinton had 500 counties that voted for her. Trump had 2,600 counties that voted for him. Of the 500 counties that Clinton had as voters, they made up 2/3 of our gross national product. Trump's made up 1/3. That is a clear delineation between voters, right? That's middle class. I don't know. I just found this information so fascinating to think those of us who are liberal and enlightened and of the people may not be so liberal and enlightened and of the people if you can't look at every person and accept some part of who they are. I mean, our whole country was built on diversity, the freedom to worship whatever religion you chose. Right? And now I feel like we're at a place where nobody will allow anybody to be who they are on either side. I mean, I'm not saying the white working class is perfect. I'm just saying I don't think we make an effort to understand where they come from. What do you think about that? I didn't mean for this to be a political discussion. I meant for it to be about class.
I mean, I agree 100%.
And you don't have to agree with me. I'm fine if you don't, please.
No, but it's so true. You can't say anything out of fear of offending somebody else, or like I mean, we were just kind of talking about it, just the honesty. You're not free to be honest or yourself. Right. And about anything, like the man was offended and turned red in the face because that is like an offensive, like could be an offensive job or a terrible job, or does not weigh who he is as a person. But that's the society that we've kind of moved into, where that's like the second question. Right. Not that I like to ask that question about what do you do, because I don't really care what anybody does, unless you are a lawyer, and then I'm like, I don't know what to talk to you either.
Yeah, right. Sorry, Lynn.
Like, okay. But our society has moved so much in that direction, and I don't know how do you get it, like, how do you get it back to not being that far right, left? I don't know what you want to say.
How do you get it back, Lynn?
Oh, I have all the answers.
I know. That's why I'm asking you.
No, I don't know. I have no idea, because it seems like to me a lot of the problem is it's not so much as not hearing the other side, it's just not understanding, and not, like, for instance, take abortion. Like, I feel like for one side, it's just like we want to have that option open and available to everybody. It's not saying everyone has to have it.
Right.
But then you have the other side who says, no, that's wrong. It's immoral, whatever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily, like, I have a hard time for me, because I'm like, but what does it matter? Then these people choose not to
Right.
utilize it, but why cut off access to those that do?
Right.
And so that's where I'll admit, like, I have some problems understanding that.
Right,
Because
totally.
I'm not saying you don't have to do it. Like, I understand that that's their personal belief, but just don't cut off other people's belief. Just have it
Yeah.
available.
I agree.
And but it hasn't been that. Now it's, you either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And those, you should just not have it. There's, like you said, there is no middle ground. I'm more middle ground. Have it. You don't have to use it. Just have it, access to it for
Right.
those people that need it. Or and that's not just about abortion. It's about a lot of different things.
Yeah, it's about healthcare. It's about
Yeah.
military. It's about almost every issue. You can kind of
just like the military. What does it matter to me? What does it matter? Whatever their sexual preference is, if they can sign up and they can physically do everything that they need to do,
Right.
What does it matter?
Right.
So why I have a problem with everyone. The part of the country that says, "Oh, you can't be gay and be in the military," because to me, that's just not an identifying thing. If they
Right.
can do the job,
who cares?
it doesn't matter.
It's discriminatory.
And so
discriminatory.
I have a problem with that when people are trying to push their beliefs, when it doesn't matter. You can have your beliefs, just don't cut off access to other people because they might believe differently than you.
I agree. Totally. I agree.
And I don't know how do you possibly shift that, because it has to be a way of thinking, and right now everything is too polarized.
So then let me ask you this, going back to the I forgot the term she used, but there's some term when you change classes in whatever direction. So coming from blue collar going to white collar, did you have any feelings about that, or any transitional times about that? Anything that was odd? Did you feel out of place in the blue collar world and you got to the white collar world and you were like, oh, this is what I'm talking about? Or was it the opposite? Do you have anything like that?
I think I feel a little bit of both in both of them, where like I'll go back to maybe that environment and I'm like, oh, I don't fucking belong here. Like it just doesn't feel right. But then in the other realm of white collar, it's like, well, I'm not really sure where I fit into this either, because it doesn't completely feel like myself in either place.
Right.
Like there's pieces of home in either one, but neither one of them feel like, yes, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
It feels like I don't, like this isn't the world that I grew up in, so I don't really know how to relate to you living in this realm of, money or whatever you want to call it.
Being self-involved sometimes. Obviously, not everyone who's white collar is self-involved.
Right. Obviously.
But it happens everywhere, I guess, in blue collar too. But do you feel that way too?
Oh, I don't belong anywhere. Like I don't. That's how I feel. Like I feel guilty that I left, because everyone I grew up stayed in Fremont, and it's really uncomfortable for me to go there because I just, there is a little bit of the, she's too good for us.
You're uppity.
I'm uppity, yeah. And I'm like, I don't like, I'm the only one that went to college. I'm the only one that went to grad school. I'm the only professional, if you want,
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer, and they're, work at JCPenney's or whatever else that they may do. And I just, and like it's also, I don't know if you experience this when you go home. Like when I go home, I'm expected to like make the rounds at like 30 different places.
Yes.
And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And I just don't have the wheelhouse to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Because I don't relate, and they don't, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable there. But then when I come here, I don't feel comfortable here either. Like I remember, like I was driving home from work one day, or I left work early, and my dad's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to go get a massage." And he's like, "Oh, that's pretty Hollywood of you." I'm like, what the hell? Or like I was at, it was when Eric's mom was really, really ill, and we'd been at the hospital all night, and I like left the hospital like probably like 2 a.m. and I came home and cleaned my entire house.
Yeah.
And his aunt was like, "We don't clean. We have house cleaners." By the way, I've never had a house cleaner.
Right.
I still don't. But it's like, what a weird thing to say. It was just such a weird thing to say. So I totally feel like I don't belong in either way. But I have a lot of guilt about both. I have a lot of guilt. Like going home. I have a lot of guilt for not going home. I feel guilty like when, Eric's family, I'll go to Hawaii or something. And it's like, we don't do anything with my family. But that's just my family. Their family time is sitting on the couch. As long as you're present, that is what matters.
Right.
Where Eric's family is like, let's go out and do something. And
Right.
so it's just a very weird culture shock. And so it is really hard and I still feel it to this day. I've been here for 15, 16 years.
Yeah, I have the same experiences, somewhat. I feel really comfortable when I go to Bowden. I do have to make the rounds a little bit, and that is really exhausting. But I always think, about my grandmother. This may be the last time I'll see her. I have to go see her. And I only see them one day a year. I have to go. I mean, and I want to go, but it is really exhausting. I feel like a lot of the times I feel similar in that it took me a long time to get comfortable in the white collar world. And I think what made me comfortable is just accepting that I'm just not like most people in the white collar world, and that's okay. And I don't need to be like them, and they don't need to be like me. And sometimes I remember getting upset about things when Bert and I first got married that he just, I don't think, understood. And I think it came from growing up blue collar, where you thought about things in a different way, like buying Christmas gifts. Christmas gifts had to be really meaningful because we had no money. So you really had to think about, what am I going to give you? And you had to kind of plan, and you had to figure it out, and you had to budget, and you had to, really put a lot of that kind of thought into buying gifts. And Bert would just go shopping on Christmas Eve and just spend so much money that I would have a heart attack. I'd be like, are you kidding me? Why would you go Christmas Eve? Everything is so expensive that day. And you just bought something you thought would be cool instead of thinking, what would she like? And I didn't understand that might have been a bit of a difference in the class system than it was a difference in personality. I think, and even the traveling, we would, as a kid, we camped all the time because it's fucking cheap.
Yeah.
I never went anywhere until I got to be an adult. And then I started traveling, going, wow, traveling's really great. But even to this day, my dad almost prefers to camp. Like, it's in his comfort zone, is what she was talking about, that people don't quit their sphere very often. They stay in their sphere because their identity is connected to that sphere. So I wonder how much of that, this is getting even deeper, I guess, but how much of that is actually genetic? Like, how much of that is DNA? Because I was born in that sphere, in the sphere. I was born to two blue collar parents, right? Yeah. So, and my dad from a young age kept going, you will not stay in Bowden, Georgia.
That's the difference.
You're not going to stay there.
That's the difference. You had one parent saying you're going to get out.
But my dad wasn't even, you were going to get out. He didn't want me to get out.
Yeah, but he knew that you needed something else.
He knew I've always belonged. And I never felt like I didn't belong. Mm-hmm. But I guess I didn't belong. I was really unhappy there. Mm-hmm. So to be happy, I had to leave.
Yeah.
But I mean.
Yeah. But you had a parent that did that for you. Like, my dad did that for me. He was like, because, what do you want to be when you grow up? Every girl says whatever, oh, I want to be a model. I want to do this. I want to do that. And my dad's sister was married to a man who was he was a lawyer, and they would take me on trips and they do things that, like, put braces on my teeth, things that my family couldn't afford.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, I want to be a lawyer because I was thankful for all these opportunities. And my dad was like, so when I graduated high school, I was like, I don't know, like, we had no college counseling, nothing. Yeah. And so I was just going to go to a local community college because that's what everyone does. And my dad's like, you're not doing that. You're going to a 4-year school. You're going to San Jose, go to San Jose State, go to Santa Clara, wherever you want to go. But you're not going to go to Loney. That was the college, the community college. And he's like, because you won't leave. Like, no one really, you go to community college for 2 years, but no one really makes that jump. Right. To college and to whatever. So he really pushed me. And I remember my dad and my aunt getting in an argument about it because my aunt's like, oh, money. It makes money sense, you know, to go do 2 years there, then move on. And my dad's like, no, she's not doing that. She's going to a 4-year school. And so he really pushed me to go to the 4-year school and then pushed me to go to law school.
Right.
Which had he not done that, I mean, I don't know if I would or wouldn't have done it. It's hard to say now, but he pushed me. So I had that one person saying, no, you're going to do something. You're going to move on.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is I had that too, obviously my dad, but I have the guilt you're talking about too. Feel terrible for leaving. And he sometimes doesn't help me feel better. And, sometimes he still lets me know it was not okay that I left. But at the same time, he knew I couldn't stay. So that guilt is really hard. I don't feel guilty that I made a choice that led me to success, that my other friends or family didn't make a choice. I think that a lot of the people back in my hometown are actually really happy people. You know, they love, especially I go see my cousins. I'm like, you are the 3 of the happiest motherfuckers I've ever seen. You just no shirt, gun on your belt, like in a boat every weekend. You're happy as a pig in mud. So why would I ever ask that person to, quote, elevate themselves when they're perfectly happy what they're doing? And actually, I have a blast when I do it with them, you know? But it is a weird thing to go from one place to another in that way. I find it very strange.
I think where I start to battle is with my kids. Like when I think about what my life was growing up, and it would never be nearly as bad for them as it was for me. But, you know, they're in sometimes I'm upset that like it's at the level that it is for them because there's just no like grasping what really matters.
Oh yeah.
Which is part of my parenting, but it's also part of the town that we live in. Like that's when you're around a society that lives that way, it's hard to raise them different because then you're the odd man out. Yeah. And who wants to be the odd man out? But I have the internal battles around them, and not that I indulge them and I don't spoil them, but you know, they don't want for anything, that's for sure. And I did always. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, fuck, I want you to like kind of just, it makes a better person.
It does make a better person. I agree with you. Yeah. That is the hard part. How do you make it rough for them without making it rough for them?
Right.
It's hard.
It's really hard. I know. Yeah. We had this the other day. Bert was like, Isla was being a fucking asshole. Every morning she's an asshole. Oh, like no holds barred. She's an asshole when she wakes up in the morning. And I've been trying to parent her through it and parent her. And Bert finally sat down and was like, this is it. I think what we're going to have to do is show you another world. So I think I'm going to get you up really early and take you downtown to the homeless shelter and let you see how the kids at the homeless shelter get ready for school and what they're doing to get ready for school. And then, you know, we adopted a family for Christmas and we got their Christmas list, and their list is warm clothes for winter and school supplies. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not toys.
Yeah.
Books, warm clothes for winter and school supplies. And Bert was like, do you see what is happening here? You can have anything you want. And these kids are asking for pencils because they don't have them. How do we get you to understand so that you have some kind of perspective on how incredibly lucky you are, and find some fucking humility instead of Isla basically wakes up with her middle finger just up every day. She's gotten better since that speech. Actually, it's been 2 weeks and she's a lot better. But it is hard. I mean, I didn't grow up as rough nearly as you did, but I definitely couldn't just go buy whatever I wanted or you know, I mean, my dad spoiled me for sure, but we weren't rich by any means. Not like this white collar world we live in where, you know, we're going to bat mitzvahs that cost as much as a wedding. And I go, seriously?
Ours will not.
It is. Yours will not. Okay, good. I'll be much more comfortable. Yes. Thank you very much.
It'll be very comfortable.
Thank you very much. We went to this fundraiser for school, and Mom and Dad were co-hosting it. And I was like, she looks so amazing. She clearly had a stylist for this. And I kept thinking to myself, because Bert is who he is, I hope we are never asked to do that, because I wouldn't even go get my hair blow dried. You know, I would I just show up my rinky dink self, you know. And I just don't know how. I don't think like that. Like, it would never occur to me. That's another thing that's difficult about being in a white collar world when you grew up blue collar. She had this other thing. I wrote down so much of what she said. I loved this podcast. I encourage you to listen to it. It was really thought provoking. But she had said, one of the reasons that blue collar families have a hard time deciding to send their children to secondary education is because a lot of the time they feel like it's a lot of money spent without a guarantee of money return. Mm-hmm. So it's a big risk for that family, whereas a white collar family can absorb that risk, and a blue collar family can't absorb that risk. So, and then they did this study where they sent resumes out for college applications. This woman created these 2 sets of resumes. One had, they had the exact same grades, exact same high school, same credentials, except for their extracurricular. One played water polo, and the other did like listed like country western dancing as their extracurricular, and then the water polo had something else that was clearly very white collar, and then the other one had something else that was clearly very blue collar. And the white collar water polo application got 16 times more acceptance letters than the country western dancing one did. 16
That's
times
insane.
more. So for a blue collar family thinking, okay, here's PJ saying, I'm going to send Lynn to a 4-year college, but there's that very real risk that she's not going to get in. And then how do we afford it when she does get in? And that doesn't even guarantee her a job when she gets out.
Yeah.
So why am I doing that? Why would I encourage that? Why would I encourage her to be disappointed? I was like, that's a terrible thing to hear.
Wow.
It was really hard to hear, because I thought, no wonder. I mean, back when I went to school, like 4 or 5 of us went to college, and the other 70 people I graduated with went to work, you know, or went to technical school and got a 2-year degree and are radiologists or, you know, whatever, plumbers, very valuable parts of society that didn't need a 4-year degree, because that's a much safer investment on your return. But you stay, again, in the same sphere. You're in the same community, in the same sphere. And that's a way of kind of elevating yourself without elevating out of your class, I guess, so to speak.
Well, I definitely didn't inherit that mindset of the blue collar, because I just feel like you live life and you try and you do everything that you possibly can. And who knows what the fuck is going to happen at the end of it. Yeah. So I guess maybe I have a little bit more. I don't have money for it, but like, you know, I just didn't.
You have more hope.
Yes. What else is there to do? Why would you not try any of it and all of it? Because you don't know what's going to happen.
That, or why don't you start a family and make that your priority, which is what she was saying. They identify themselves, or blue collar people identify themselves by their community and by their kids, and they go to work for 40 years at a job they hate because it takes care of their family and allows them this identity that's involved in their whole community, which is in fact quite valuable.
Yeah.
It's invaluable. I mean, she says in there, when I turn my faucet on during the day, some big thinker didn't make that happen for me.
Right.
Somebody blue collar made that happen for me. And the elitists who choose snobbery and choose not to listen to the real issues the middle class have, not the racism that is perceived or not the negativity, the forcing of their own religious agenda, to throw all of it out is not right either. I agree with that. She was saying this thing too about, I just thought of it. Now it went out of my head because I am perimenopausal.
Did you re-listen to it and write
I've
up all
listened to it
those
4
notes?
times now.
I'm gonna
I
have
have
to
listened to it 4 times. I listened to it again twice this morning. Shit, I forgot what I was thinking of. But she was talking about allowing everybody their dignity. That doesn't seem to be happening in either class. That the blue collar is not allowing the white collar their dignity and vice versa. And I think that is absolutely true. Because you only see that one piece that doesn't resonate with your piece. So then you go, well, then I'm not listening to you. Instead of saying, no, that's not what I was thinking. Since 1970, the wages for the working class have tanked. So all people born in the 1940s, all people, she said virtually all people, did better financially than their parents if they were born in the 40s. Obviously, the Depression was in the 30s. But how does that affect your self-esteem and your worth? Is that you know that you've done better than your parents. Since the 1970s, well, she said today, less than half of the population does better than their parents. How does that make them feel about who they are and what their value is? Either class. She said that is across the board. Either class, they're about half the people are doing as well or better than their parents. That's terrible. So if what we're saying is jobs, if that's what the middle class is saying, we're saying, well, look, unemployment rate's doing great. We're doing great, and everything's fine. It's actually not fine if half the people in this country are doing worse than their parents before them. And think about how lucrative the 80s were. That was a really powerful time financially in our country in a lot of ways. But now we're not even half the people. That made me upset.
Do you suppose that is partly because there is a generation of kids who have not been made to do anything?
I don't know. It's a good question.
So they can, just sit around and not get a job, or everything's kind of handed to them? Is that, I wonder.
I wonder too.
Because there is a generation of people now who did not have to work, and everything is handed to them, and they don't know how to survive any real world situation.
Well, yeah.
I mean, there used to be get cut off from your parents. You got cut off from your parents, so you had to get a job. You had to do something. Now I think parents are much more likely to help, so maybe there's not that as much drive.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got cut off from your parents as much as you had the drive to be cut off yourself. To say, no, I'm moving into adulthood and I am taking care of myself. And that is part of your self-esteem. Is that you say, I don't take help from my parents, I'm moving on. I don't think that happens as much. There's more of the path of least resistance nowadays, of, if I can just crash at my parents' house, then I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And the parents are okay with that. And I guess maybe that's part of it. I wonder how much, not to get in a totally different conversation, but I wonder how much the drug problem has to do with it. There are so many people who have serious drug problems in blue collar community.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a legit epidemic, I think. So that, to your point of these statistics, how many of them are that as well?
Yeah.
Good question.
And people sitting asking, for money. I mean, the work ethic is not what it used to be. So I wonder how much of that, in what generations and what ages is it?
Well, I also think that it has something to do with now we're more moving towards what can I create? The generation is more let me get that quick fix. Whether it's I know my brother-in-law is always trying to come up with the best get rich quick scheme.
Yeah.
What about an app that does this? And you're like, okay, you're just not that person. You're not going to be delving. But I think that there's the newer generation is, and they are very much of, I'm going to get, I'm going to blog. What the fuck is that? That's someone makes a shitload of money on YouTube, being a YouTube star. I remember we were at the movies the other day, and they're like, oh, that's so-and-so. And I was like, they're famous. I'm like, who the fuck are they? They're some YouTube thing.
Right.
And that's we have all these ways that people can make money.
Well, they're perceived ways.
They're perceived ways, yes. But I think so parents indulge that more.
Right.
And then, then their parents are paying for their living expenses and they're taking their money and they're buying, the designer things, the luxury cars or whatever. And I think that is part of the problem. I think it's not people. I think we've moved away from, I'm going to make a living. I'm going to make a life. Versus now it's just, I'm going to have fun and I'm going to try to make money while I'm having fun.
We've moved into dreams and away from hard work.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And hard work is hard to come by.
Yeah.
Well, I know another thing she said in this episode was that the blue collar really hard work is really important to both classes. That's somewhere where both classes have the one thing that is really in common is they both believe in hard work as a class. And you think about how many hardworking people are blue collar and how many hardworking people are white collar. Lawyers working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. My husband is working 7 days a week for months on end. That's a common ground that we can both agree on. Hard work is an important part of your life. But to talk about that diminishment, of income and of the self-esteem sort of, she was talking in this episode too about when sitcoms changed. Like in the 70s, Archie Bunker showed up. And Archie Bunker was clearly like a racist, blathering, sexist idiot. And the children were smarter than he was. He was super entertaining, but he devalued the blue collar person as far as their intellect goes, right? Homer Simpson did the same thing according to her assessment. Homer's always is like, don't do, and Marge knows more than he does, and so do the kids, and they always outsmart him. So then societally, the elites who are the writers of these shows are portraying the blue class as stupid, racist, and that's being fed to society. So it is changing the honorability of being blue collar. She said if you go to post offices from the 30s and 40s, there are all these murals, mosaics of all these hardworking people who built the nation, the people who built the railroads and carpenters and all these construction people all over these murals. And they stopped at a certain point. She believes that back in those days, that type of hard work was considered very socially honorable. And somehow it shifted away from that. So that type of work was socially dishonorable because part of the reason is all probably, I'm sure, more than Archie Bunker. But if you think about it, that's pretty fascinating that about the 70s, a lot of things in the world started changing in the 70s. And that's one of them. I mean, how many sitcoms can you think of that are like Father Knows Best or Leave It to Beaver, where dad's the breadwinner and mom is a great support? And, not that that's necessarily realistic either, but at the same time, at least dad had some honor. Whereas Archie Bunker, if you break it down, he's not a super honorable guy.
No.
And if that's how blue collar is being portrayed, and that's what's going into the psyche of the public, that's not okay. My dad's a very honorable guy. Mechanic, would never cheat anybody out of anything. If you ask him to show up, he is there on time and ready to go. Works his ass off. Much time he dedicated to our elementary school and the farm. He built structure after structure. For what? Because it was part of his community. It was community building.
Yeah.
It wasn't for money. It wasn't for glory. It was because it needed to be done. And that's how he gained value in himself. And I don't see that happening a lot lately.
I don't know that it's going to happen. I really don't know how we get back to that.
How do we?
Because everything, saying the YouTube thing, it's like all of our kids watch YouTube. So then they see that it's like this, oh, well, you could, they get paid. Mom, if you let me stay home and play Fortnite every day, all day long, I'll be so fucking amazing and I'll be rich. And I'm like, you're kidding, right?
No.
You're kidding. But that's the society that they're now living. And they don't believe, I was at a concert with Dakota and there were these group of kids there. And it was all kids, but it was Billie Eilish, but all the entire crowd screaming about a couple of these guys. And I'm like, who are they? Because they're young. I don't know who they're. YouTube stars. You would think they were like amazing,
like Bruno Mars,
top notch. Famous, super famous artists. the entire place was screaming for the YouTube artist.
Right.
It was like, what?
Yeah, it's
what
really weird.
world are we living in
What do they
now?
do on
where
YouTube?
that is, I don't even know. Stupid shit. Apparently,
They like cut
Apparently
open
they do
squeegee
stupid
balls.
Shit, probably. Like it's two
Stupid.
brothers that do. I don't know. They're famous for doing stupid shit. But the crowd erupted like it must have been the most amazing person. And I was like, it's a YouTube star. This is our society now. This
Right.
is our world now. Like
Yeah.
there's no honorable anything about I don't it's
Or
so
being
crazy.
blue collar is no longer honorable.
Right.
Like for you to graduate high school and go, I want to be a plumber. People are like, a plumber?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. You know how much money plumbers make?
Well, they're always needed.
Yes.
But I think there's also, I think it's just society in general. Like, think about it. When we went to school, we didn't, after school, what did you do? Did you go to lessons? Did you
No.
Nothing.
No.
You went out and you just played and you experienced and you grew.
Yep.
And like now, between this project or that project, or I mean, Sydney this week had a spelling test, language arts test, social studies test, has a planet project, needs to make her something for her her secret snowflake. This is just 1 week, and then has to do a
fifth grade
timeline project. I'm like, what the fuck? It's 1 week before Christmas vacation, and your teacher's just piling all this shit on.
Right.
But that's now what we're valuing as a society is these test scores.
But I don't value that.
No, but
I don't either.
you
but
and
that's
I
what they're setting
don't.
up.
But our kids are
The kids do.
in that reality
Yeah, it's
because
true.
Sydney's like, I'm just gonna fail math, and I was like, okay, I don't understand the math, so
Good luck with that, Sydney. You're on your own.
Oh,
I
it
went to
was-
law school. I should not. I mean,
but it's awful, and it's like they don't get time to work,
No.
to be a person, and they don't get time to be a kid, and that's where so much of this social and who you are and who you become really develop at this age, and they
Yeah.
don't have time for that anymore.
I know. It's
And so
awful.
we're raising assholes. I mean, not
Well,
that
only
we are,
you, Lynn.
just only 50%. But
Only 50% in my house too. George is lovely in the morning.
but the whole point is that we aren't taking time. Like it's just I think it's come to what we value, and we want the best for our kids, and we want them to succeed, and that means that they're unfortunately not succeeding as being a person, being a good human being.
But if we're all sitting here saying we don't agree with this society that we're talking about, that is their reality, why is it still their reality? Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. It's because there's 3 of us and 3 million other people out. Like I just think that
Maybe we should start our own school. Lynn, will you teach?
yeah, I'm great.
let's do it.
But that's funny because we're looking at high schools and for Carter, and I'm like, because he's not happy at where he's at right now. But I was like, well, what do you want? Like, what? He went to one high school and he thought he liked that. And then we went to another high school and he's like, oh, I kind of like it. And we went to another thing and he was like, I think I need small. I need small. I need to like know my teachers. I need to know the students. And I'm not getting that. And I was like, okay, good. Like that's a good start. Now we know what you're looking for.
Yeah, narrow it down.
But I wouldn't have thought that. But he said he wants to know his teachers. He wants to be able to where he can talk to his teachers. He wants to be able to have good relationships with people, which he feels he's lacking right now. And so I'm like, okay, these are all good things.
Yeah.
But he's craving that like
Community.
He's craving community.
Yeah.
And he's not getting that where he's at right now.
Right.
And so it's like they're not allowed to have that because we're so jam-packed in the schools. We're so jam-packed in our day.
Right.
Where they don't get a chance to just go on their bike and ride all around and do whatever, without someone else breathing down their neck or, I didn't even want to let Sydney walk to the end of the street because God only knows everyone's so busy. They're not looking when they back all their driveways or neighbor's going to see and like she's unsupervised and call the police, just all these things that we never had to think about.
No, we didn't have to think about it. That's one thing, as you're talking, it's one thing I really like about Georgia's school is that they have 15 minutes between every class. And that's on purpose. so that they have 15 minutes to socialize, to be a human, to go to the bathroom, to eat a snack if you're hungry, to go talk to somebody in the office if you need to, so that it's just not all business. And they have a lot of community service days that happen during school. So they go to school, but then they get on a bus and go downtown and work at the food bank or whatever. And that's part of the culture of that high school, is that it's not just about your grades. It's about who you are as a person. And you need to have time to goof off with your girlfriends for 15 minutes before you start thinking about something again.
That's so rare.
It's so rare. I feel so lucky that we found this school. I mean, the traffic sucks to get to it. It was 2 hours round trip the other day to pick her up from softball when it was raining.
Yes.
2 hours it took
that's
me.
ridiculous.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
But it doesn't rain much in LA. So thank God.
It's 2 days.
Thank God. It was just 2 days. So, but anyway,
think about that.
You're right. I think
immeasurable
you're right.
experience that she's getting and how she can relate to people on a better, different level than anyone else. And that's, I think, what we're missing.
It's the space for her to find out who she is and who she is within the context of this group and this culture that is her high school. That is worth more than the education, I think, is that piece of it, because she's made friends. And I think she's made friends relatively fast. By October, she had a couple of really good friends, and she was going to a school in which she knew one person, nobody, just one person. And they knew each other. They weren't friends, but they've known each other, for a while. But that's pretty cool. I was like, that's really good. They created an environment where that can happen.
Right.
The important thing is that they're given time to figure out who they are.
Yes.
And right now, no one has time for anything. So everyone's becoming who they are told that they are.
Right.
So now that you have society where it's so polarized, you're having a whole group of kids coming up that are feeling oppressed by the rest of the country
and depressed.
That too. But then so it's hard because everyone's just being told what they are and no one's figuring it out, and so this problem will never get solved because no one's figuring it out. Everyone's just doing what they've been doing the time before and the time before and the time before.
God, you're a downer, Lynn.
Downer, sorry.
Damn, that was downer.
Well, the thing is too, it's like that education is not attainable to everybody.
No, it's not. It's a private school.
And it's a problem, because it is beautiful. I mean, for Billy, in his school, he's thriving more than I ever thought. He got in this car yesterday and he's like, Mom, we're starting this stock market club or something.
Oh,
and
dork.
like finance
dork.
club. Total dork. You know Billy.
Yes, he's a total dork.
I was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, we're just, we're started it and there's this app thing that we're going to do and create and we're going to learn about all these finances. And I was like, great. Not anything I ever would have thought would have come out of his mouth.
Right.
But he's in a private school that's small. And also because we're sister brother schools, very similar.
Yeah.
And they have freedom to grow and learn about themselves.
Right.
And it's so beautiful getting to experience him doing things that I just didn't think he would be able to do, or that he would make the choice to do.
Right.
To join National Honor Society.
Right.
I didn't even know it was you could do it. And he came home and said he did it.
Awesome.
I was like, okay, great. He's advocating for himself.
Yeah.
Everybody should be able to have access to that.
Yeah, they should.
And they can't.
Right.
And that's the problem, is that because a good portion of the society can't go to a smaller school where you have the freedom to do that, we're just going to keep
churning out shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What time is it? I forgot my watch. Okay, good. Okay, I know Sam has a heart out, so I just wanted to I had no idea
That's
how
why
long
I had
I've been
my
talking.
phone right
good.
here, yeah.
Okay, well then good. Well, I've talked a lot about, or I think I've talked a lot about, I feel really strongly that our national education plan, or whatever it is, does not address blue collar kids at all anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that is part of our problem in the country, is part of the polarization problem, because like I said before, so few kids that I went to school with went to 4-year college. Everybody either went to work or went to 2-year college. And that was, they embraced, all 3 of those options were embraced when I was a kid. Not working and being a lazy ass on your parents' couch was not embraced. But getting a job or going to a 2-year college or going to a 4-year college were all embraced kind of equally. I mean, everybody was always like, wow, she's going to go be a nurse? That's amazing. You know, that was a big deal.
Right.
But it was not a big deal that someone went to technical school. And now that doesn't exist in my hometown high school. There is technical school. Like I've said this so many times, but half of my student population in my junior or senior year in high school went to technical school during school. Like,
oh yeah,
after homeroom, they got on a bus and went to technical school. Yeah. So by the time they graduated, they could actually get a skilled labor job, or they could continue at technical school. What's that?
My high school had that.
They don't do that anymore.
No.
That doesn't happen anymore. There's no home ec in classes. There's no shop. There's no auto mechanic. They used to have auto mechanic at high school for me. There's no agriculture classes. There's no avenue for a kid to make a choice other than getting a minimum wage job or going to a 4-year college. There's no path for that for the general population. And 53% of our population makes a different choice than college or just be, doing nothing or getting a minimum wage job. So the educational system is so far off based on the statistics of where people are in this country. That's so disheartening. Because I would imagine investing in technical school education that happens during high school would save so much money down the long haul and would generate more income in the form of income taxes because they are making more income, which is more taxable money. So I don't understand why we can't kind of sort of shift our focus nationally into this more well-rounded thought process. When we were looking at high schools for Georgia, Van Nuys High School here locally has technical school on their campus. They also have a huge ROTC presence. I was so massively impressed with their school. They have a performing arts magnet. They have a math and science magnet. They have a medical magnet that partners with UCLA. And they had 6 or 8 technical classes, and like they had auto mechanic at Van Nuys High School. And when I was there, I saw the ROTC like marching in the quad, and I was going, "This is what every single public high school should look like. Every single one of them should have high achieving, regular high achieving, regular not high achieving. There should be options for everyone because let me tell you something." Isla Kreischer is super smart. All of her new friends, almost all of them at school, are in IHP, which is the individualized, like really highly gifted program. But she sucks at school. She just is dyslexic.
Right.
But socially, she's functioning with these really high intellect. Dakota is extremely smart. Dakota's one of her best friends. So to me, I go, well, clearly Isla's really smart. She just doesn't learn like everybody else. Right. And they don't diversify her learning so that she can achieve. She has to achieve in this single box. And I think that's such a crime. I feel like I've been on a soapbox this entire podcast. I've just talked the whole time. Sorry. But I am really passionate about this.
I feel you so much because all of my kids are very smart in very different ways, and Kingston has a lot of the same issues, not to the extent of Isla, but he's probably smarter than the 4 of them put together because his brain works in such a different way. But that kid on paper, he's not going to test that way.
Right.
But it is so much about, but your test scores have to be so high. And you know what? If you keep studying, you can test this high.
No,
well,
it's
that's
not
fucking
true.
bullshit.
It's not true.
Yeah. And so it irritates the shit out of me too, because I am now worried about like, well, great. What do I do for him? Because you do have to fit into this box or you're kind of screwed.
You're totally screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's aggravating.
It's awful. And what the message it sends the kid is awful.
Terrible.
Because my dad, also dyslexic, a C student on a good day, right? Went to technical school in high school, graduated, got 2 degrees in some form of mechanicking, and has been a mechanic and super happy his whole life. He was a teacher, actually. For years, he taught at the vocational school. Super smart, but barely made it out of high school because he doesn't learn like everybody else. But because he had that vocational school achievement, he had self-esteem. So where does a kid like Isla get her self-esteem? Now, lucky for us, Isla has really healthy self-esteem. She's that disposition where she has that in her favor. But there are so many kids who don't have that disposition.
Carter.
But Carter makes good grades. No?
I mean, he doesn't make great grades. He doesn't make great grades, and he struggles a lot. And he is severely down on himself.
He is, he is down on himself. And I would like to shake him till his head pops off because he has so many positive things going for him. It must be really hard to see your son.
It is. And that's why when he got in a car a few weeks ago and he was like, I want to go to private school. And I was like, oh, shit, I don't want to go down that private school route. But I was like, well, okay, let's talk about it. And then when I started talking to him about why he wanted to go and he was also having some issues at school, that
Like social issues?
well, yeah, and just the school not really supporting him.
Yeah.
In fact, putting him in the situation in which he was in, or he is in, I was like, you know what? You fucking deserve it. You deserve it, and we'll do whatever we have to do to get you into private school.
Right.
And when he's like, I want that relationship with teachers, I want to be able to talk to a teacher, because if he can explain his thought process, then he's great. But trying to do something, he doesn't get it, and he gets B's and C's, but he could get all A's, but he's very much, I mean, he is black and white, very like literal. And so when a teacher says do this, he does it, which appears that he's doing the bare minimum, but he's actually in his mind doing exactly what the teacher asked.
Right.
Because the teacher didn't say, expound
Elaborate.
on it. Like, it's like, write it on this. And he's like, the differences between this and that. And he's like, writes the legitimate differences, but not philosophical, because he doesn't think that way.
Because he's economical. Isla's economical. She's like, why would I write a full sentence when I can answer your question in 2 words? Yeah. And I go, well, because it says right in full sentence. She's like, well, that's just a waste of my time. I've got TikTok, baby. I got shit to do. And I'm like, but the teacher says, like this one teacher has a definite, like vocabulary words. She'll have like 20. Which is kind of a lot because it's not an English class, it's a history class. And
that's bullshit.
And for each definition, he would like 2 sentences, full sentences defining the word and a picture that you draw of the word.
Christ.
So when you have 20 words, like if the word is church, you have to write a full sentence defining church and a full sentence describing or explaining that definition. Not like use the church in a sentence. No. It has to be another sentence now kind of defining the sentence that defined the word. Where I go, she's 12.
Oh my God.
A. B, she's dyslexic. Yeah, I mean, come on. No, this is ridiculous. See, it's a history class. How many ways can you define the word priest? It's kind of it's a holy man in the church.
Somebody wears black and white,
and then she really has to draw a picture of a priest. Yes, and she's graded on all of it.
Yeah,
we did 1 sheet of 20 definitions. It took her an hour and a half, and I'm like, this is
stupid.
This is ridiculous.
but it's giving her work to do for the sake of doing work.
No, that's not what he said.
Well, that's not
what he said was, he's creating a critical thinker. Where I go, my kid thinks critically differently than verbally.
And can't you do that in 5 sentences or 2 sentences? Like, why 20?
Why 20? And, well, that's the vocabulary that's in the chapter. She needs to know all that vocabulary. But my point is this. There's lots of different types of intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. Isla can look at this table and then build this table. That is a spatial intelligence. She can't really necessarily look at this table and eloquently describe it in language. That is not how her brain works. So why would I ask every single child to eloquently describe this table in language? When some kids like Isla and Carter are going to go, it's a metal table. I mean, that's not an incorrect answer.
No.
But because you haven't expounded and critically thought every inch of it, you're now a failure. That's asking everyone to have the same type of intelligence, which is not what created Steve Jobs or the Rockefellers or Mr. Mulholland, who created the aqueduct system in LA. I guarantee you those people had inadequacies somewhere and extreme talent in other places, just like our kids that we're talking about. And I just don't feel our educational system addresses that. And a lot of blue collar kids grow up with blue collar parents who don't expound on what this fucking table is. They go, it's a metal table. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think it's great that when you look at this table, all you see is a metal table. And then, but when you look at those chickens, you see something different than, my mother-in-law comes over for the chickens and she's like, oh, disgusting. And I see the chickens and go, they're amazing. I get free eggs all the time. They're super easy to take care of. They follow me around the house and talk to me all the time. And she's like, oh, you let them in your house? And I'm like, yeah, I do, because they're my pet. Oh, they're a pet? She's very white collar.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Right.
That she doesn't get it the way I get it. Because why would I ever expect her to? I would never expect her to go in and go, hey, hand me that chicken. Could you imagine?
Gigi with a chicken.
In her cashmere sweater.
pay
I
for
know,
Gigi
right?
to see that.
No. So, but why would we ever expect her to? I would never expect her to embrace the things that I embrace. She has no experience like I have. And I don't have hers either.
Right.
I mean, she was talking to me over Thanksgiving about all this silver that and she was talking about this silver, and then she was like, and it was sterling. And I went, I don't fucking know what that means. I have no idea what that means.
What does that mean?
Is it fancy? I don't know.
I don't know.
It was registered and numbered, and it's in some log somewhere, in some log in London. They log all this silver, and I'm like, I didn't even know that happened.
No.
I've had no idea.
No, so why would she like a chicken? I don't know nothing about silver. Anyway, anything else you'd like to say about the differences between blue collar and white collar, since Sam has to leave? So,
No, I mean,
did you learn anything from what I was saying?
some of the statistics are alarming.
They are alarming.
Aren't they?
Yeah. We're really failing our society.
We are failing.
And I think you had said earlier, well, how can you change this? Or what's the solution? I don't know if there is one, but I really think it has to do with early education.
I do too.
And I think it has a lot to do with what you're saying, where, there is no shop. There is no anything other than you're going to go to a 4-year school.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's not what every kid's going to do. And, it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you have a kid, not that this was even the topic of discussion, but when you have a kid that isn't that fit in the box kid.
Yeah, it is hard.
Because they don't fit in a box now, they're not going to fit in the box later. And so they're going to struggle their entire life. And that's upsetting.
Or they'll persevere.
That's true. But
or they'll
what I'm
rise
saying,
above.
It's always going to be a difficult path.
Right.
It's not going to be easy. And that's for no good reason other than it's just not what the rest of society says is okay.
Right. That's right. It's just about other people's prejudices and opinions and an excuse to push the mute button. I loved that she said that. I thought that was absolutely right on. And it goes the other way too. Mm-hmm. The blue collar can find, they're so self-involved and so self-important. Mute button. Same way as we go, he has a rebel flag on the back of his truck. Mute button. Obviously, I don't support racism.
Right.
But you can't close your eyes to the whole person because you don't agree with part of who they are. I don't agree with part of who a lot of people are. And I don't agree with hate. I don't agree with non-acceptance. I don't agree with racism. I don't agree with any of that. But people who do believe in those things live in this country with us. So how do we not divide ourselves? You have to at some point accept that we are all different and that there is a reason for that, I guess. What is the reason? I don't know. But they have a reason for believing what they believe. And there's some nobility in just the fact that people who don't believe the same way we do are a person. I think we forget that that people on the other side of the issue is a person that has feelings and family and gets cancer and loses their dog and wrecks their truck and has an addict in their family, just like every white collar family has the same.
Well, I think like Sam said something that was, a lot of probably what I'm thinking is that, we're in this area and we're surrounded by like
somewhat like-minded people.
Well, not just that, but people who are very affluent. They're wealthy.
Affluent, yes.
They're, and so when you don't mix with other members of different classes or, like it's pretty white around here.
Yeah.
And when you don't mix and you don't see, it's easy to ignore.
Very true.
And so we don't see what the South is going through.
Right.
So it's very hard to be empathetic when that's not in our faces. And so it's on this intellectual, like, we think, and I know like Burton has mentioned this before, like we think we know what those people need, but we don't.
No, that's absolutely.
We're not there. And so we're guessing and we're not right.
I think that is a very important thing you just said. Yes. I think the white collar people think they know what the blue collar people need, and they have no way of knowing. And instead of saying, you need this, they should ask the questions maybe. What do you need? Okay, we both agree on hard work. How can we have your hard work make you feel good about yourself? Like my hard work makes me feel good about myself. Right. How can we get back to that place where a man can be a breadwinner? Not that he has to be the breadwinner, but that it's possible that he can be a breadwinner in his home and feel good about that and not have... I don't know, how do we get back to that place, sort of? Maybe that's what Make America Great Again meant to people. Not women are stuck at home and men are working or any of that kind of stuff. Maybe it meant something different to the people who feel like they can't adequately take care of their family, that feel like they are not doing as well as their parents before them, to feel like they are not valued for being blue collar. Maybe that's what that meant. Maybe Make America Great Again to the people who that resonated with went back to those murals in the post office that was about construction and railroad and the stuff that we don't have any concept of. Because to us, America is great.
Yeah.
America is great. It's white collar. But I don't live in that place.
No, I don't either. It's really hard though, because you do have to change it's changing a whole society. We can change it within our kids, but...
You don't think the three of us could change the whole U.S.?
I mean, it's possible, actually, knowing the three of us, how strongly we believe in things.
And work ethic?
Possible?
There's a good work ethic in this room.
There's a good work ethic in this room. I mean, it's certainly possible, but it is really sad. I mean, we've now gone, it feels like, to one extreme. And how do you go back to a center?
I don't know, but we need to find a way, I think. We need to find a way to embrace everything, even the shit.
Yeah,
because the shit is part of our history,
But everybody wants to erase it.
No, it shouldn't be erased.
It can't be.
If it's erased, it'll be repeated.
But so many people want to erase it, and so many things are not acceptable, and you're not allowed to say this, and you're not allowed to believe this, and you can't. And you cannot erase history.
No.
History is why we are here now. But now it's taken to the polar opposite extreme, which is too much. Yeah. And I don't know how you find your way back to the center.
I don't know. We need a hero.
We need a hero.
We need a hero.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the hero?
You.
Heck no, it's not me. No.
Halston.
Halston's the hero. Good deal.
Halston's the hero.
Yes. We'll make him a cape with a big 8.
Yes.
I don't know. I think that's what the country needs. The country needs a hero. That's somebody that everybody can get behind. And I don't know who that person will be or when that will happen.
Yeah, we haven't had a hero in a long
It's been a
time.
very long time. So I think it's time. All right. Well, thanks for talking to me about this subject.
Thank
I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Clearly I enjoyed this podcast. It stimulated a lot of thinking for me, and I hope it kind of came across,
Yeah.
that it did, instead of just me on a soapbox babbling about education. But anyway, thanks for discussing.
Thank you.
Mary.